Hello and welcome back to our third video in the hardware topic, and in this video we're going to look at how the central processing unit, the CPU, is able to talk to all the various components within a computer. Now, the CPU, the central processing unit, is the most important part of the computer. It's the brains of the computer. Its size is about the size of a thumbnail or a little less, and it's made of silicon. If you were to get a microscope and really burrow in and have a close look at the CPU, you would see a myriad of electronic circuitry. And the electronic circuitry's job is to do all that processing which we've talked about in a previous video. Now, the CPU needs to be able to talk to all the different parts of a computer. And to do that, it needs a physical connection. There are lots of physical connections between the CPU and the various components within a computer. And there are lots of connections between the various parts or components of a computer. Those physical connections are called buses. Now, a bus is a pathway of wires that allow electronic signals to pass between various computer components, as well as from the CPU to those components. On the whiteboard, we are going to look at three types of buses. That's the control bus, the address bus, and the data bus. At the top here we have the central processing unit, memory such as RAM, and input and output. That's basically all the components within the, or certainly the peripherals and the parts that need to talk to the CPU are shown there. The arrows are indications about how these various parts are talking to each other. So, for example, we have the control bus, and on the control bus, data and information is able to pass to and from. So the CPU can write information to the control bus, and it can also read information and data from the control bus. The same is with memory. The memory can send and receive information from the control bus, as can the input, receive and send information to the control bus. When it comes to the address bus, the CPU will only write or send information to the address bus. The memory can only receive or read information from the address bus, and that's the really important bit. For inputs and outputs, they can read information from the address bus and write information to the address bus. And again, we will show you what features the address bus and what job that does, along with the control and the data bus. Finally, with the data bus, we can see that information and data can be written to the CPU and read from the CPU. For memory, memory can read information and write information to the data bus, and the same is with the input. The inputs and outputs can read information and write it to the data bus or send it to the data bus. So what do these three buses do? Because they all have specific jobs. Let's have a look at that now. So let's start with the address bus. Then we'll go on to the data bus, and then we'll talk about the control bus. The address bus, information moves in one direction. So it is sent from the CPU and goes to memory. We won't worry about the inputs and outputs. but the CPU will send instructions to memory asking for specific data. The CPU will also send specific instructions to the input and output as well. So the address bus is one way, and its main use is for the CPU to send instructions both to memory and to the inputs and outputs. The data bus has information which can flow either from the CPU or to the CPU. On this data bus is actual data the CPU wants. So for example, let's say the memory puts specific data onto the data bus that goes along this wire and can go into the CPU. Data can move, as I've said, in both directions, and it is up to the control bus to act as a policeman. The control bus main job is to instruct when something should be written to the CPU or when something is read from the CPU. It will also, on the control bus, carry information where data is to be stored. So it's come from the CPU along the control bus. Where is the data going to be stored in memory? That's what the control bus will have. It will have the address, essentially, of where that data is to be put. Or if the CPU wants information or data from memory, then the control bus will have the information of where that data is to be fetched from. So in a nutshell, the address bus is used for the CPU to send instructions. The data bus, the address bus, that movement is one way. The data bus can be written to CPU or read from CPU. So this is two-way. And the control bus is like the policeman. It will say when information can flow in one direction or the other, and it will contain information about the data, where it is to be stored or where it is to be fetched from. So in this particular video, we have looked at what the various buses are: the control bus, the address bus, and the data bus. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.